Welcome in to another live edition of Bengals Breakdown. I am your host, Stone Shields. Got my right-hand man, Chris Daughtry, behind the scenes helping us out producing today's live show. We did not go live last week with the Bengals schedule release. That obviously took place a little bit later on in the evening, but we are back here live on Wednesday, May 21st. Appreciate all you guys hanging out with us here so far. Already got about 30 people in the chat here hanging out. Of course, Tim Tyra, he's here. He's been here. He's been commenting. Tim, we appreciate you and your support as always. Got plenty of stuff to talk about here on today's show. We'll kind of dive into exactly what we have on tap for today's show, but I do want to start out with a question to you guys. Who do you want starting at left guard and right guard for the Cincinnati Bengals? Get those names for me into the comment section of today's show. Obviously, when you look at the Bengals offensive line, right, that center position, you've got it nailed down there with Ted Karras, at least for the short term, right? You got your tackles on the outside, Orlando Brown Jr. at that left tackle spot, Amarius Mims, your first-round pick last year at that right tackle spot. You feel pretty good about those three pieces of your offensive line. And you work your way towards the interior there at those guard spots. There are a lot of questions, right? The guards last year clearly did not get the job done, right? Cordell Volson has kind of been that guy at left guard the past several years. He ended up getting benched several times. Cody Ford was kind of called into duty last year for Cincinnati. He, by the way, is back on a 2-year deal with this football team, so he very well could be competing for a guard spot there. Additionally, Alex Kappa was also pretty poor for you at that right guard spot last year. He is now in Vegas with the Raiders, so you are replacing him. Lucas Patrick is a new guy that you brought in kind of at a couple weeks into free agency. You picked up Lucas Patrick. And, of course, you drafted Dylan Fairchild in the third round out of Georgia, a guy that I am pretty fired up about. So let me know. Two guys, two names. Need them down in the comments section right now. Epic MX690 says Fairchild and Lucas Patrick. The depth chart that I am currently working with right now, that's what we've got right now. If you look up, Bengals depth chart or go to their website or whatever, that's not going to be what you have. But right now, my projection is Fairchild at that left guard spot and Lucas Patrick at that right guard spot. I would not be surprised, as we'll get into all this on today's show, if Cordell Volson was able to improve given Scott Peters. That's another interesting element to this equation, right? You're bringing in a new offensive line coach. Frank Pollock is gone. Scott Peters is in. And you never know. You might see more improvement from guys like Cordell Volson and Cody Ford with the new coaching. We're just going to have to wait and see from that perspective. Desert Ranger Jesus says Dylan Fairchild and Cody Ford. Again, Cody Ford back on a deal with Cincinnati. He's kind of been your sixth offensive lineman. I've been pretty hard on Cody Ford. A world in which Cody Ford is out there week one as a starter, I don't feel great about it. But if he goes out there and earns it through training camp in the preseason, Scott Peters, Zach Taylor, Joe Burrow deem him as the best guy for the job, then hopefully he can go out there and execute. All right, what else we got here? Drew says, what's up? What's up, Drew? Appreciate you swinging by here on today's show. Football Rule Cornwell says, what do we do with Trey? We'll spend a little bit of time talking about Trey Hendrickson on today's show. I'll just answer your question really quickly. One, I don't know. But I do think it's going to be something that gets dragged out, and does become quite ugly. And it's just a matter of, who breaks first. Is it Cincinnati? They up their offer to Trey Hendrickson, or is it Trey Hendrickson and he either signs what Cincinnati has already offered, which apparently, allegedly, reportedly is in that $28 million per year range. Does he sign that, or does he not sign it, go out and play on his current deal, and hope to hit free agency next year and play out that $16 million deal? So I don't know. We'll see, but I definitely do think it's going to get ugly and drag into training camp. Let's talk a little bit about Joe Burrow here on today's show. Joe Burrow addressed the media for the first time yesterday since really the end of the 2024 season was the first time that he has been back addressing the media in Cincinnati. We'll discuss some of the stuff he said. Nothing really crazy, but he did say the wrist is something that he's still dealing with, but it definitely is in a much better spot this year than it was this time last year. And obviously the wrist really didn't affect his performance out there on the football field. But, of course, Joe Burrow, the one knack on him has been that, he's gotten hurt sometimes. Obviously, last year was able to get through the entirety of the season without getting hurt. But how many games do you think Joe Burrow plays in 2025 for the Cincinnati Bengals? Sound off for us in the comments section. Jesus says Ford can play almost every position at offensive line, but center. Yep, I think that's definitely one of the things that Cincinnati is really intrigued by when it comes to Cody Ford, right? The ability to have that versatility and play along all those spots. And I think really that's probably the main reason that they offered him that contract to come back here. Jesus says 17 plus. I love it. Phoenix Girl also says 17 as well in the comment section. Hopefully that's the case. Obviously, if Cincinnati is going to do what they want to do, go on a run, they're going to need Joe Burrow. And all of this, all of the stuff we talk about, right? T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, they got their contracts. Great. We'll see what happens with Troy Hendrickson. We talk about the draft picks. We talk about the free agency. All that goes out the door if number 9 is not out there on the football field. So obviously a very critical question there. Also, I have some significant news. We'll talk about this on our last segment here of today's live show, so make sure you stick around for that. Name a Bengal you want to participate in the Olympics. I'm really excited that they're not they're letting, NFL players play in the Olympics in 2028. It's going to be here in America in Los Angeles for that, and only 10 players, though. The roster is only going to be 10 players, and really interested to see what exactly that roster looks like. Now, I believe you're only allowed to have one player per team represent. Obviously, not every team is going to be represented, but you can't. My point is, you can't have multiple guys from the Bengals on this team, apparently. So that means Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase can't both be on the team. So I would expect you guys to be picking between those two. So get a name for me in the comment section. Who would you rather see, Joe Burrow or Jamar Chase? I think those are really the two obvious picks for Cincinnati. Again, only 10 players, 5 offensive, 5 defensive, only 1 quarterback as well. And Mahomes, of course, has already voiced that he would like to be a part of it. So it'll be interesting to see if Joe Burrow would even have that opportunity, right? If a Mahomes or an Allen or a Lamar Jackson or whoever, a different quarterback that wanted to go out there and play, and then we'll see exactly how they figure out who's going to be playing. I don't really have those details yet either at this point. KB Poindexter says Hendrickson. Yeah, I haven't studied a ton when it comes to this flag football stuff, but I think an edge rusher that can only really be a rusher probably isn't the best kind of player. People have thrown around like Micah Parsons, right? But I think when you're looking for rushers, you're looking for more quicker guys that also can drop back in coverage. But I am by no means an expert when it comes to these rules for flag football. Phoenix Girl says says Chase, and Candy Kane says Joe Burrow. We will spend some time talking about that on today's show. Also, we will have a live mailbag here on Bengals Breakdown. Get your questions in. Use hashtag Bengals or Super Chat. Skip the line altogether and be a part of our mailbag. If you don't use hashtag Bengals, my guy Chris cannot find your question, and we can't get you a part of our show. So make sure you use that hashtag so Chris can find that. Did see some earlier on from Tim Tyra. Again, this is our third segment here on today's show. Doesn't matter. You can get your questions in now using hashtag Bengals or Super Chat. If you're all ready to start today's live show, show it by dropping us a like on today's video. Got about 50 people in here hanging out. Got about 20 likes here. The goal is always for that 50-50 ratio between viewership and likes. A couple more likes here, and we will move on. But something you should do for all of our stuff here at Bengals Breakdown. We greatly appreciate it. Helps us get the word out there to more Bengals fans, and obviously makes the bosses here at Chat Sports happier as well. So help us out. Drop a like for me on today's show. All right, coming up live here on Bengals Breakdown, we're going to talk some OTA takeaways from yesterday. Tuesday's session was open to the media. Dan Hoard, voice of the Cincinnati Bengals, he was there, and he had some good observations that he put out on Twitter. We're going to be breaking those down here on today's show. Also going to be talking about some major changes to the Bengals starting lineup. Obviously, you got draft picks, you got free agents, you got guys leaving, guys coming in. You're going to have a different starting lineup out there week 1 than you did last year. Going to be breaking that down, as I mentioned, live mailbag. Get your questions in using hashtag Bengals or Super Chat to skip the line altogether. And also some big NFL news coming up as well that we are going to discuss here on today's show. Once Chris is ready on his end, we will get this thing going. Chris, you good? All right, that's all coming up live here on Bengals Breakdown. What's going on, Bengals fans? Stone Shields on hand for another edition of Bengals Breakdown. And coming up on today's show, we're going to be breaking down some observations that Dan Hoard put out on Twitter from yesterday's Bengals practice that was open to the media. Hoard, of course, is the voice of the Cincinnati Bengals, has done a tremendous job as their lead broadcaster for quite some time, and he always puts these observations out on Twitter, whether it's an off-season practice, a training camp, what have you, and we're going to be breaking those down here on today's show. Definitely some noteworthy stuff, and definitely some injury-related stuff too as well that we're going to be breaking down here on today's show. But before we get into that, make sure you guys give me a follow over on Twitter at StoneShields_. Working our way towards 600 followers over there on my Twitter page. We will have all of our Bengals Breakdown content posted to my Twitter page, and also you'll see some highlights and clips and things like that from these Bengals OTAs. And of course, when any Bengals breaking news happens, we'll have you covered there on my Twitter page as well. So go give me a follow at StoneShields_. All right, takeaway number one here from Dan Hoard. And again, he has these all up on his Twitter page. It's going to be breaking those down here on today's show. Joe Burrow addressed the media for the first time since the end of last season. Had several noteworthy things to discuss. And really, most importantly, said this is the best that he has ever felt in an offseason. Obviously, Joe Burrow has had tumultuous off seasons in his past, right? Obviously, you had the massive knee injury, right? As a rookie, you had the appendectomy that kind of popped out of nowhere. Getting back from the wrist injury, right? You had the calf strain. It's always been something seemingly with Joe Burrow in the offseason, but Joe Burrow so far is in a perfect spot as far as his health and just kind of overall recovery is at this point of the offseason. This is what Joe Burrow had to say in regards to the offseason. He said, I'm trying to get better, trying to get stronger, faster, healthier, try to find ways that you can optimize your health throughout the whole season. As I mentioned, he did address the media, and there were a couple noteworthy things that I did want to just touch on here on today's show. He did show his support for Trey Hendrickson, right? I said, that I was kind of hoping that the first question that some of those people that do a great job covering the Bengals would ask is be like, hey, you said T. Higgins was a need. Is Trey Hendrickson a need? Now, he did voice, his love and appreciation for Trey Hendrickson, basically saying, yeah, I hope he gets what he deserves. He does deserve, what the market dictates, right? He's been out there and he's been producing at a high level, but he also said it was kind of a we'll have to wait and see type of situation. I did think it was interesting. He wasn't nearly as adamant talking about Trey Hendrickson as he was about talking about guys like T. Higgins and Jamar Chase last season. Did think that was a little bit interesting, but he did definitely show his love and appreciation for Trey Hendrickson and definitely kind of cracked a little joke there with the media and said it was an exciting day, right? And obviously when he was with the Bengals last week, when he addressed the media and kind of had that scrum around him during that Bengals practice, which obviously was interesting. As we noted, the wrist is still something that he deals with, but he said it's in a much better spot this offseason than it was last offseason. Obviously, that is a good situation. Did talk about the fact that he's doing that QB documentary. That should be really, really exciting. And he also voiced his support for Jermaine Burton, who obviously had a awful rookie season last year, but apparently, according to Zach Taylor and Joe Burrow, he's done the right things here this offseason. I think the Bengals are hopeful that he can have a much better showing here in year two and at least act a little bit more like a professional football player. Leads to the pinned comment here of today's show. How many games will Joe Burrow play this season? Obviously, he was able to make it through the entirety of the 2024 season, which was awesome, yet the Bengals still found a way to miss the playoffs. But has had certainly injury concerns in his past. So let me know, how many games do you think Joe Burrow will play this season? Zach Taylor also really did a great job of really showing his appreciation and love and really was raving about Jerry Montgomery, who is the Bengals' new defensive line coach. This is what Taylor had to say in regards to Jerry Montgomery. He said he's very thorough, very demanding, great teacher, very intelligent. He really sees the big picture of the defense and not just the front four or front seven. And really, a lot is riding on Jerry Montgomery this year, right? The Bengals' defensive line has been a weak point for this football team. Obviously, you get a new coordinator coming in as Al Golden, but you got a new position coach there as well. No more Marion Hobby. You got Jerry Montgomery, and he's really got to do a good job of coaching up these players and bringing in a guy like TJ Slayton that's one of his guys, right? The two spent a lot of time together in Green Bay, and obviously he's going to have to help develop those young guys along the interior as well as those edge guys, right? Because you're looking at Chris Jenkins Jr. You're looking at a guy like McKinley Jackson, both second-year players, and you really need to get something out of Myles Murphy, who we will touch on here in a second. But do want to give a shout-out to our friends over at Fanatics. Let you guys know that Bengals draft hats are still out. They're still available. You can go get them. Chatsports.com/Bengals draft hats. They've got a bunch of cool ones up there on Fanatics. Really encourage you guys to get over there and check some of those out. We will put that link in the comment section and the description of today's video. One more time for you guys. It's chatsports.com/Bengals draft hats. As I just alluded to, Jerry Montgomery is also very eager to help along Myles Murphy. Myles Murphy obviously was your first-round pick back in 2023, and these first 2 years for Murphy definitely have fallen well short of expectations. Here's what Montgomery had to say about Myles Murphy. He said, "It's not like he's a bad football player. The kid's got good size and plays hard. We can clean up his hands, eyes, feet, and pad level and help him put a better rush plan together." Obviously, he hasn't played like a first-round pick. And in a lot of spots, he wasn't even able to make his way out onto the football field, right? You got to give a credit to a guy like Joseph Osai, who was a later-round pick, obviously, in a different year. But Osai was really able to beat him out as that next guy along their rotation there. When they kind of phased off Sam Hubbard there as an edge rusher, it was Osai that saw more reps than Myles Murphy. Myles Murphy had 20 tackles there last season, also only had 20 tackles back in 2023. He definitely was kind of viewed more as a project that year, and that was kind of understandable, but the lack of production last year definitely was frustrating. And if Cincinnati is going to get to where they want to get to on defense, especially with all the uncertainty surrounding Trey Hendrickson and his contract situation, the Bengals are going to need Jerry Montgomery to get the most out of Myles Murphy, and it's going to be critical that those two work really, really well together, and we see a lot of improvement when it comes to Myles Murphy's performance. Let me know in the comments, do you think Myles Murphy will be better in 2025? I want to know what you guys think. Be honest with me in the comment section. Type Y for yes or N for no. One of my favorite players on this football team is Tycen Anderson. I also think he's one of the most underrated players on this football team. Tycen Anderson said that he is aiming for the Pro Bowl, and he's looking to kind of have like an all-pro type season and really be one of the best, if not the best, special teamers in the National Football League. This is what Anderson had to say exactly. He said, "I want to be the best special teams player in the league. There are a lot of great dudes, and I want to be brought up in the discussion and push for an all-pro season." He's really kind of that secret weapon, right, for Darren Simmons on that special teams unit. He is always flying down the field ready to make a tackle. He's a sure tackler, right? And we've kind of teased the fact that, hey, why have we not seen him at that safety spot? Obviously, he is a backup safety. That's kind of where he falls in that roster. And it'll be interesting to see if there's guys like Jordan Battle and Geno Stone that struggled this season at that safety spot, if he could perhaps go in and play for Al Golden's defense. Obviously, that did not end up happening last year, and he was great on special teams for this football team, but it'll be interesting to see if he has a different type of role. This is one of the guys that's one of the best special teamers in the National Football League. I'm pretty fired up to see him back in 2025. Hoard's last observation that he made during Tuesday's practice was in regards to Charlie Jones, who the Bengals, of course, took, I believe, in the 4th round a couple of seasons ago, but really has struggled staying on the football field. But he was participating in basically all of the passing drills and was really moving around nicely out there on the practice field. This is what Zach Taylor had to say about Charlie Jones. He said, "I'm excited for him to have a great training camp and create a role for himself in our system. Now it's the consistency of staying on the field." Now, we really haven't seen much out of Charlie Jones at that wide receiver position, right? He's done some great things for you as a returner on special teams, right? When you're talking about punt return, kick return, what have you. But really, as a receiver, we have not been able to see him do too much. He had the hand issue that rookie year, and then they had that hamstring issue that really ruined most of his season last year. It was one of those things where it was like, yeah, he was going through the week, he was doing a little bit, he was questionable, then ultimately got ruled out when it was time to go play the football game. If the Bengals have something here in Charlie Jones, boy, look out. That wide receiver room is really, really dangerous. You obviously know what the top of the room looks like: Chase, Higgins, and Yoshi. If this guy can be that kind of 4th or 5th guy with Jermaine Burton and really shows that he can play the way that the Bengals thought he would be able to play when they drafted him a couple of years ago, boy, this really could be the best wide receiver room in the National Football League. And I already think it is the case with or without Charlie Jones. But if he can provide juice for this football team as well, look out. Might just be unstoppable. Now, we will have you covered with all Cincinnati Bengals news here at the channel. Don't miss out. Hit that sub button for me right now. Who do you want starting at those guard spots for me? Let me know in the comments of today's show. 2 spots are open for the taking, left guard and right guard. Who do you want to be out there for Cincinnati? I know I want Dylan Fairchild out there. I don't know exactly who I want that next guy to be. All right, next segment here on today's show, we are going to be breaking down some changes to the Bengals starting lineup. Also, after that, we got a mailbag, so make sure you guys get your questions in. #Bengals. Chris, you good on your end? All right, without further ado, we will jump into our second segment. Some major changes that I think we can expect for the Bengals starting lineup here in 2025. Welcome in to Bengals Breakdown. I am your host, Stone Shields, and coming up on today's show, we're going to be breaking down some major changes to the Bengals starting lineup that I think we're going to see in 2025. Obviously, lots of different things have happened, right? You've had some guys leave, you've had new draft picks, you have new free agents that have come in, and really, you've had a lot of changes to the coaching staff as well. So we're going to be breaking down all of those changes here on today's show. But before we get into that, if you are excited for the 2025 NFL season, you can't wait for it, show it by liking today's video for me right now. Hitting that thumbs up icon, right? Something you should do for all of our videos here at Bengals Breakdown. We greatly appreciate it. Going for over 500 likes here on today's show. Let's see if we can't make it happen. All right. I think the biggest change that we have seen with this football team since the last time they took the field at the end of last season was the defensive coordinator. Obviously, he is not a player, but he is very, very important when it comes to what Cincinnati is trying to do and accomplish as a football team. And there's an insane amount of pressure on Al Golden, right? The Bengals, Zach Taylor, he always knew it was going to be Al Golden when he knew that Lou Anarumo was leaving, right? There wasn't a ton of guys that he interviewed. After Golden got wrapped up at Notre Dame, it was pretty obvious that he was going to be the guy. And we saw the Bengals bring back some guys in free agency that maybe we expected wouldn't come back, right? B.J. Hill, certainly a guy that I thought, you know what, it might be done here in Cincinnati. No, he comes back on a 3-year deal. You're bringing back Joseph Osai as well. You're committing to Geno Stone at that safety spot once again. You really are relying on Al Golden to get the most out of this group and help them play a lot better than they did last season. And obviously that is an extremely high amount of pressure on Al Golden. Now, he could be a massive upgrade, and I think he will be. He really could go out there and change this defense around. I think he has the ability to do it. We saw what he could do at the college level, and we saw what he could do as the Bengals linebackers coach back in 2021 when they went to the Super Bowl. Obviously, it could still be bad, right? And then you're in a situation there where if you're Zach Taylor, you just had the biggest decision to make of your career when it came to finding Lou Anarumo's replacement. And if that proves to be a failure, shoot, your job might be on the line. So really, this is a massive, massive decision that Cincinnati had to make. And we'll see if Al Golden can live up to the task. Do want to be very clear, this is exactly who I would have hired as well, and I believe that it will all work itself out, and he will still have a great job here and do a great job here in Cincinnati and really elevate that defense. This is what your staff looks like, right? Zach Taylor at that head coaching spot, Dan Pitcher, year 2 as the OC. Obviously, Callahan goes into his next year as the Titans head coach. Golden's your DC, Darren Simmons, your longest tenured coach here as your special teams coordinator. I feel good about this core 4. We'll see if it ends up translating into wins on the football field. Pin comment time here on today's show. What's your confidence level in the Bengals coaching staff? Scale it for me in the comments section. 1 on the low end, 10 on the high end. Get that in the comments section of today's video for me right now. All right, Demetrius Knight Jr. Obviously is the next guy I want to be talking about here on today's show. And Demetrius Knight Jr., of course, is your second-round pick that you got out of South Carolina. And he's going to be called upon to really come in and do a great job filling in next to Logan Wilson as that linebacker. And I really have a lot of faith and a lot of confidence in Demetrius Knight Jr. that he can come in and really be a valuable piece to this football team. Now, the question is, what's his role going to look like, right? Is he going to be a starter for this football team, right? Is he going to come in and be a guy that, hey, they got to be relying on him day one to go out there and make a ton of plays on the football field? Or what exactly is that going to look like for Cincinnati at that linebacker spot? Also, another guy is Oren Burks, right? He is a guy that you're bringing in from the Philadelphia Eagles as a free agent. Won a Super Bowl last year. He is a veteran guy. I don't view him as a guy that's going to be an every down type of guy, but he definitely is a rotational piece. I view him as kind of that third linebacker. Also, Muma We all love Muma right? He was able to make the team for Cincinnati as a UDFA last year. I expect him to be back. What's his role going to look like defensively? Is he going to be more of just a special teams guy, or is he going to have an opportunity to work his way into Al Golden's defense? And also Barrett Carter, your third-round pick that you got, or excuse me, your fourth-round pick that you got out of Clemson at that linebacker spot. Obviously, he can do a lot of things as well. The Bengals really like his instincts and the way that he's able to move around on the football field. So it'll be interesting, if a Barrett Carter is a guy that could certainly come in the lineup and have a lot of impact for Cincinnati. Also, the defensive tackle position, that rotation is going to look totally different as well. You're bringing in some new faces there. Really, the major new face here is TJ Slaton there at that nose tackle spot. Sheldon Rankins is on his way out. TJ Slaton is your guy that you're bringing in, pairing him up with Jerry Montgomery, obviously. That connection there, the Bengals' new defensive line coach. And I got a lot of belief in TJ Slaton. I think he's going to really do a great job of being a good run stopper for Cincinnati. That's kind of going to be their main forte here is, hey, can we stop the run on early downs and then force teams into throwing the football on us and then, put ourselves in a position where we're setting ourselves up for success. Obviously, the Bengals didn't do a great job of stopping the run on early downs this past season, and it got him into a lot of trouble. Also, some UDFAs that could perhaps make the team at that defensive tackle spot, right? I think, if a UDFA is going to make this football team, I do think it will be at that defensive tackle spot. And I think all three of these guys have an opportunity to do that. Howard Cross the third, obviously you got the Al Golden connection there with Notre Dame. Eric Gregory, and also your international pathway guy in Dante Barnett. He'll definitely be a part of the Bengals practice squad because he is not going to be taking up a roster spot. We will continue with our changes here in a second, but do want to give a shout out to our friends over at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to turn your sports knowledge into cash. With millions of members, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least two players for a shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Cash in on the basketball playoffs with Prize Picks. Don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the court to your Prize Picks lineup, whether it's points, rebounds, assists. Take your pick of more or less for your shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash today. Also have some season-long Prize Picks when it comes to the football side of things. Going with the less than on Jared Goff passing yards. Also going with the less than on Travis Kelce receiving yards. Also going with the less than on Jaden Daniels rushing yards. The beautiful thing about Prize Picks and the flex play is you don't have to get all three of those correct. You can miss one and still have an opportunity to double your cash. So download the app today. Use code CLNS. Get $50 instantly after you play that first $5 lineup. Again, download the app, use code CLNS. Get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. It's Prize Picks. Run your game. We'll put that link in the comment section and the description of today's show. All right, so another question that I have when it comes to the Bengals lineup here is who's going to start at those guard spots, right? Obviously, you know what you have in your tackles, right? Your two starting tackles, Orlando Brown Jr. and Amarius Mims. And at that center position, you've got Ted Karras there, at least for the short term. What are you going to do at those guard spots? I do think Dylan Fairchild will start in week 1. That is your round 3 pick out of Georgia. And I feel really confident that Scott Peters is going to be able to get him in and get him ready to go there at that guard spot. Now, what are you going to do at that right guard spot? Right? Lucas Patrick, you brought him in kind of at the tail end of NFL free agency, right? Cordell Volson's the guy that started for you the past couple of years, but he got benched several times as well. I think Cody Ford's a guy that they have a lot of confidence in. I view him more as a rotational piece. I kind of look at him as kind of that sixth offensive lineman. So if he's out there starting week 1, I'm not really thrilled about it, to be completely honest with you. But, hey, if he earns it through camp, preseason, so be it. Also, Jackson Kirkland's another guy to keep an eye on. I think the Bengals really liked what they had in him. Kirkland, of course, made the team last year. He's got that inside-outside flexibility there as well, but then he suffered a season-ending injury that kind of removed him from the equation a little bit. But it will be very interesting to see who starts at those guard spots for Cincinnati, something that I think is probably the biggest thing that we're going to be evaluating here throughout training camp. Who do you want to start at those guard spots, left guard and right guard for the Cincinnati Bengals? Let me know in the comment section of today's show. Also, next up here, how are the running backs going to be rotated, right? I think we all understand that, hey, Chase Brown is that running back one. He looks like he's well on his way to being one of the next great running backs in the National Football League. But I think after that injury there to Zach Moss last year, he kind of found himself in a position where he was really taking all of the workload, and that's not something that Cincinnati wants, right? They want to take care of Chase Brown a little bit more than that, and they have the ability to do that here in 2025. Zach Moss is coming back for the Cincinnati Bengals. I think obviously that is a quality thing for this football team. Samaje Perine, of course, you're getting him back from the Kansas City Chiefs. We'll see what kind of split those two guys have. I would imagine Perine's going to be more of a third down back and not really get a ton of early down work, but we will see. Bengals, Joe Burrow, Zach Taylor obviously have a lot of trust in Samaje Perine. Also, your sixth-round pick, Taj Brooks. Right, Taj Brooks is a guy that is definitely kind of a bigger back. He's got some flexibility to come out of the backfield and do some things there as well. I think the Bengals really got a steal in the 6th round with Taj Brooks. I've spoken about that a lot here on the show. I don't know what his role is going to look like here in year 1, but I definitely think at some point we're going to see Taj Brooks take that next step to perhaps being that right-hand man to Chase Brown. But I think the Bengals running back room was a situation in a room in which you kind of went into the offseason having some concerns, but I think they did a great job of addressing it here this offseason, and I think it's really going to be in a good spot for 2025. And make sure you don't miss out on any Cincinnati Bengals coverage. When Bengals news happens, we got you covered here at the channel. Don't miss out. Hit that sub button for me, youtube.com/BengalsTV. All right, we're going to flip back to the defensive side of the ball here to round out today's show. I obviously talked about the interior defensive line and the linebacker. Now I want to spend a little bit of time talking about those DBs, right? It's basically the same pieces. You don't have any new faces into that room. You have not added a DB at this point yet of the offseason. Obviously, you're probably going to lose Mike Hilton, although he hasn't signed with another football team. So how are they going to be deployed, right? How is Al Golden going to deploy these guys? I have Dax in the nickel here, but that's probably not going to be what ends up transpiring, right? He's probably going to be on the outside, and you're going to be looking at Josh Newton as that nickel guy for you for the Cincinnati Bengals. So who are you starting? You starting Turner or you starting CTB at that corner spot? I don't know. Obviously, you got two guys in Turner and Dax Hill coming off of injury, so going to be very interesting to monitor that. Bengals also bringing back Marco Wilson on a one-year deal, and DJ Ivey still on his rookie contract as well. So these guys are going to have to play a lot better for the Cincinnati Bengals football team. It will be very interesting to see how Al Golden deploys this unit. Now, edge rusher. Obviously, this position is incredibly dicey for the Cincinnati Bengals here at this point because you got the whole situation with Trey Hendrickson, right, which is, kind of, let's say it how it is, kind of a mess right now, that whole saga that is transpiring. And then Shamar Stewart, as of filming this video, has not signed his contract. That obviously is not ideal, and you really haven't had any production outside Trey Hendrickson in that position in quite some time. Joseph Osai is back on a one-year prove-it deal. Was he good enough last year? No, he was not. Cam Sample, he's coming off a serious injury there with his Achilles. Obviously, there's concern there, and obviously Myles Murphy, your 2023 first-round pick, has not lived up to the expectation here at this point. So this room is very, very worrisome and very well could determine the success that the Cincinnati Bengals football team has as a whole. This room in particular, and it's going to be very important for this room to really improve and find a way to go play productive football this year. Mailbag time here on today's show. use hashtag Bengals or Super Chat to be a part of our mailbag. Get those questions in, hashtag Bengals. How are we doing on questions here, Chris? Make sure you guys are using hashtag Bengals, or else Chris cannot find your question. You see a couple there, but we'll hang out here for a moment. Also, remember, Super Chat, skip the line altogether there. Huh? Keep the questions coming. Hashtag Bengals or Super Chat, and we will get going here with our mailbag here on today's show. You good, Chris, on your end? All right. Let's get it going here with today's mailbag. Before we get into today's mailbag, make sure you guys share today's video for me on social media if you haven't done so already. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, you name it, it works for us here at the channel. Just trying to get more word out there to more Bengals fans who aren't necessarily tapped in to what we're doing here at the channel. So help me out, share today's video for me right now. Tim Tyra getting us going here on today's mailbag. He said, if the Bengals somehow do not make the playoffs, will Zach Taylor be fired? He did fire and hire all new coaches. Not quite all new coaches, but I do see what you mean. Obviously, lots of guys were fired and new guys were brought in. The way I look at it is this. I was getting very frustrated last season when people were calling for Zach Taylor's job. I thought it was incredibly disrespectful to him and what he's been able to do here during his time as the Cincinnati Bengals head coach to have those remarks last year. Now, if he misses the playoffs again this year, I will be okay with those conversations happening and transpiring, right? You got Joe Burrow and you got the best wide receiver duo in the National Football League. That should not result in missing the playoffs. No matter how bad your defense is or no matter how tough your schedule is, wherever the case may be, it should not result in missing the playoffs. Now, do I think that the Bengals will actually fire him if they miss the playoffs here in 2025? No, I don't. I think he will be all right, and I think he will be back in 2026, but I will be okay with having those conversations if Cincinnati misses the playoffs this season. Santiago, are we sleeping on Barrett Carter? We might be a little bit. Barrett Carter, of course, is the Bengals' fourth-round pick out of Clemson. And, look, I was kind of a little bit frustrated, I guess, on draft night when Cincinnati selected him. I think a lot of us wanted a safety in that spot, and Lathan Ransom was sitting right there. And it was kind of like, there's your guy. Go get Lathan Ransom. And they had already gotten a linebacker in the second round, and they went and got another linebacker in the fourth round. But when you see the work that he's been able to do out on the football field, he really is a quick, twitchy guy for a linebacker. He's got some ball skills there as well. And, look, the Bengals clearly think he's going to be able to play on special teams. This guy was a leader at Clemson, kind of that green dot guy, captain of the defense. I think he's going to have a fine career here in Cincinnati. And I do think we might be sleeping a little bit on him just because we as a fan base, it felt like collectively we were a little bit frustrated with the pick. But I do think Barrett Carter could step up for Cincinnati here. Maybe not in year one. I think Demetrius Knight's going to have an opportunity to be that starter next to Logan Wilson. I don't know if Barrett Carter is going to get as many reps, but I'm starting to think that the Bengals got that pick right there with Barrett Carter in round 4. Will Barrett Carter have a role with the Bengals in 2025? Like a significant role. Obviously, he's going to have some type of role, but a significant role with the Bengals in 2025. Let me know in the pinned comment of today's show. Type Y for yes or N for no. Epic MX. When do you expect that Shamar Stewart and Demetrius Knight to get signed? It's a good question. I wouldn't say I have necessarily a time frame. As of filming this video, Shamar Stewart is not signed. Neither is Demetrius Knight. And Gray Zabel, who was picked at 18 overall, one pick after Shamar Stewart, has been signed. And Stewart has still not been signed. The Bengals remain confident that, hey, as more first-round picks continue to get signed, they'll figure it out with Shamar Stewart. And I do have a little bit of concern, not that it's going to get signed. It's going to get signed at some point, right? But Amarius Mims, that went into the night before training camp, right before he signed, but he was still practicing with the football team. And that's why when the season came, he was ready to go. Shamar Stewart's participating in the meetings, and he's there wearing his jersey, but he's not doing anything on the football field. And for a guy that only had 4.5 sacks throughout his collegiate career, and you picked him at 17 overall and need him to come in and be productive immediately for your football team, it's a little concerning that he's not out there participating. It's going to get done before training camp, and I would like this to get done sooner rather than later so he can go out there on the football field, on the practice field, and get these reps because he really, really needs it bad. So like I said, Cincinnati needs him to come in and be effective immediately. KB Poindexter. Do you anticipate any kind of scheme difference in the defense with the new defensive coordinator? Will they change to more of a 3-4? What do you expect and think? It's definitely going to be, you're going to get a scheme difference, right? Al Golden, we saw at Notre Dame, he loves playing man. So all these boys, they're going to be playing man coverage. You can bet your bottom dollar on that. And he's also going to simplify the scheme a lot more as well. Al Golden's kind of talked at length about doing that, right? You can only, put so much on these guys' plates because you don't want them overthinking out there. You just want them reacting to what they see on the football field. Al Golden's made it clear that that's how he wants them to be able to play. And you notice with the Bengals defense, once Lou Anarumo simplified some stuff for him down the stretch, they were able to play a lot more free and a lot more fast and go out there and play a lot better towards the end of the football season. So I do think scheme-wise it is going to look a lot different. A lot of man coverage there from Al Golden, so those DBs better be ready to go in that regard, but it's going to be a lot more simplified, and I think you're going to see a lot more success with this Bengals defense. Because you got to understand, when you're paying Joe Burrow and you're paying Jamar Chase and you're paying T. Higgins, you're always going to have a lot of youth on the defensive side of the ball, right? Because you're going to have guys that are on rookie contracts that you aren't paying a lot of money, right? And they're going to need to go out there and play at a high level, and I think more of a simplified defense will help them be able to do that. Continue with our show here in a second, but do want to remind you guys that you can get some Bengals draft hats courtesy of our friends over at Fanatics. Obviously, the NFL draft is in the rearview mirror here at this point, but that's all right. These hats are still available. They've got some pretty cool ones up there on Fanatics. That's chatsports.com/Bengals draft hats. We'll put that link in the comment section and the description of today's show. One more time for you guys, chatsports.com/Bengals draft hats. B. Henry. Do you think there should be a healthy competition at kicker? Do you trust Money Mac? I do think there should be a guy that is, there, right? It shouldn't just be McPherson throughout kind of training camp. There should be another guy, but I don't think it really should be a competition. You can phrase it as a competition if you want. There needs to be another guy out there kicking field goals just to apply a little bit of pressure on McPherson, but he's the guy that you signed. He's your guy. And, obviously, last season was not the season that he wanted or that the Bengals needed. You could put a lot of games that you lost. You could put it on your field goal kicking unit. I do want to be clear here. It's not just McPherson. It's the whole operation that needs to be a lot better when it comes to the snap from Adamitis and the hold from Ryan Rico and just the overall protection as well. But McPherson, you paid him a big-time contract because he went out there and helped you get to a Super Bowl. And these past 2 years, 2023 wasn't great, and 2024 was downright awful. So, hopefully he got healthy this offseason. He's ready to get back to the form in which he was when the Bengals went to the Super Bowl when he was a rookie. Epic MX 690. Free agents you think could be possible targets for Cincinnati. We'll kind of merge this in here with William. His question as well. Because William said, should the Bengals sign Raekwon Davis? And I think really that's the name that kind of jumps out to me immediately is Raekwon Davis. Davis, of course, played his collegiate football at the University of Alabama, had great success there. I believe he was a second-round pick, played out his rookie contract with the Miami Dolphins before playing last year with the Indianapolis Colts, and he brings some run-stopping ability, right? Obviously, that's what you're hoping you're getting there with T.J. Slayton, but you could use some depth behind it, right? We see guys get banged up along the defensive line all the time. So, yeah, you might feel good about T.J. Slayton and B.J. Hill, but something's going to happen, right? And then next thing you know, you're going to have some backups in there, and then if they get hurt, you got some UDFAs at that spot, but you really need another body in that room. I think Raekwon Davis is the best available guy. Was he great in Indianapolis? No, but he was able to make it through the entirety of the season healthy last year he was kind of looked at as that, he definitely wasn't a DeForest Buckner, right? They've got some studs there, veteran starters. He was more of a rotational piece, but I definitely think he could be that for Cincinnati as well. I would have interest in signing him. That's kind of the first name that pops to my mind here at this point, but I do think it would behoove the Bengals to bring in a veteran at that DT position. Also, I think it would be a good idea to bring in a veteran cornerback as well. Still some notable names out there, so let me know a player that you want the Bengals to still sign here at this point. Get that name for me in the comment section of today's show. Who Day number 9. What is your trust in Dax Hill at corner? I feel like he will be top 2. Do you mean top 2 on the football team? I got a lot of trust in Dax Hill. I think he's your best cover guy. I think he's your best defensive back. But obviously he's coming off a serious injury, so you don't know exactly what kind of form he's going to be in once the season gets underway. Is he going to be able to move around like he did prior to the injury? But there's a reason Cincinnati picked up his fifth-year option, right? They got a lot of love and a lot of belief in Dax Hill. I do as well. As I just said, I think he's your best DB, and I got a lot of trust in Dax Hill. And if Dax Hill struggles this year, that's going to be an issue for Cincinnati because he's the guy that I trust the most in that defensive back room. Ben, did the Bengals hire a new offensive line coordinator, and do you think that Burrow will be better protected this season? Offensive line coach, yes, Scott Peters is the new guy that is coming in to replace Frank Pollock, and I do think the offensive line is going to be better. You're just getting another year for Amarius Mims. He was phenomenal as a rookie. You really hit that pick out of the park. Orlando Brown Jr. was having one of the best years of his career, but he wasn't able to stay healthy. Fingers crossed that he's able to stay healthy. I think you got a great center in Ted Karras. I'm really high on Dylan Fairchild, your third-round pick out of Georgia. That right guard spot, I've got questions there. Is it going to be Cody Ford? Is it going to be Cordell Volson? Is it going to be Lucas Patrick? I don't know. Could you still pick up a guy like Brandon Scherf? Sure. But I'm really buying in and drinking all the Scott Peters Kool-Aid. I know a lot of people are fired up about having Scott Peters here. Zach Taylor certainly is as well. I think he alone is going to help boost this offensive line. But I think year 2 for Mims, getting an early round draft pick in Dylan Fairchild, you're going to see this unit play a lot better. Not that the unit was horrible last year. You got to understand that when you're playing like the Cincinnati Bengals do, spreading it out 5 wide, there's only so many protections that you can run as an offensive line. So the way the Bengals play football makes it hard on their offensive line. Duke Tobin alluded to that at the NFL Scouting Combine. I do think that's something to bookmark and file away. That's just kind of the way things are. But obviously there is a lot of room for improvement, and you don't want to see Joe Burrow taking shots like that, but he also has to get rid of the football quicker and not quite hold on to it so long and try to extend plays. If you're enjoying this Bengals mailbag, you are in luck. We will have more of them for you here at the channel. Don't miss out. That sub button for me right now, youtube.com/BengalsTV. It's K1SWN. Do you think our most impactful player this year out of all the rookies? Who do you think our most impactful player this year out of all the rookies? I got you. Shoot, hopefully it's Shamar Stewart, right? Because you picked him at number 17 overall in the first round, and he was, a major position to need, even if Trey Hendrickson's coming back. If he's not, holy crud, you really need him to come in and produce. So hopefully it's him. Demetrius Knight Jr., your second-round pick, obviously he's going to be probably looked at as a starter too, so hopefully it's him. My gut tells me it's going to be Dylan Fairchild at that guard spot, but I hope that we look at either Demetrius Knight Jr. or Shamar Stewart and say that they are having the most impact out of everybody. But I would say my gut would say Fairchild here at this point. Name a Cincinnati Bengal you want to participate in the Olympic Games. Flag football, of course, going to be a part of the Olympics here in 2028 in Los Angeles. NFL players will be involved. Name a Bengal that you want to see out there on the football field. Micah said, do you think Joe Burrow will win MVP? I'm in a position where how do I say this? I'd be putting money on Joe Burrow to win MVP every year until he wins it, I would say. Responsible amount of money, nothing outrageous. But I think a couple dollars on Joe Burrow every year until he wins it, I think would be a good bet, is what I would say to that question. (11-6). What inning? bottom 7. Chris is a big Alabama fan, so he's locked into SEC baseball tournament here. Had the lead over Tennessee for a second, but Tennessee has since pulled out in front 11-6 Volunteers. Got one more segment coming up here on today's show. Obviously, if you've been tapped into the NFL media at all today, you know that there's been some pretty significant developments around the league that we're going to be talking about here on today's show. And we will get into that here right now. Chris, you ready? All right, we'll get it going here with our final segment of Bengals Breakdown. You are watching Bengals Breakdown by Chat Sports, and I am your host, Stone Shields. Coming up on today's show, we got some huge NFL news that directly is going to impact the Cincinnati Bengals. Several things that we're going to be talking about here on today's show that are going to have an impact on the Cincinnati Bengals football team for the 2025 season. A couple of things that we are going to discuss here. The tush-push rule. That is being upheld. In other words, you can still run the tush-push in 2025. Obviously, the Philadelphia Eagles are pretty excited about that. Also, the Detroit Lions made a proposal about some new playoff seating. That ultimately did not go through. We're going to be breaking down what exactly that means. And also, flag football is coming to the Olympics. More importantly, NFL players can participate in flag football that will be in the Olympics here. The Olympics, obviously, Summer Olympics in 2028 are going to be here in the United States, in California. And we're going to see some NFL players out there, which I think is very, very exciting. Before we fully dive into all that, I do want to invite you guys to hit that sub button if you haven't done so already. That's youtube.com/BengalsTV. We have hit our 19,000 subscriber mark. Next goal here is 20K, which would be pretty significant here at the channel. Obviously, got a ways to go, but I think we can get a chunk out of that here on today's show. So help me out and help yourself out as well by hitting that sub button right now. All right, so lots of meetings, lots of votes going down the other day as far as what's going on with the tush-push. And here's the news from Adam Schefter that he put out on the 21st around lunchtime, saying a ban of the tush-push play that the Philadelphia Eagles popularized did not receive enough votes at today's league meetings in Minneapolis. The play remains alive. There will be more tush-pushes this season. Obviously, that is very, very significant, right? You know, a lot of people have had different opinions on what exactly should be done about the tush-push. Me, personally, I didn't have a strong opinion either way, right? When it came to the tush-push, it was kind of one of those things for me where it's like, well, you need to learn how to stop it, right? Nobody can stop it. I think that was something that, I think teams need to do a better job, right? Finding better leverage, getting a little bit lower to the ground. But I also understand why people are frustrated by it. It's not really a football move, right? It's not a fun move when you see them all line up there and Jalen Hurts gets down low and they all crunch in together. That doesn't look like American football to me. It looks like rugby. But at the end of the day, you got to give them credit because they're able to go out there on the football field and execute it. And not every football team can do it. If it was something where, everybody was executing 100% of the time, then you might sit there and say, well, maybe that's not, great for the game, right? But nobody does it better than the Philadelphia Eagles. They probably should not get punished for it. Obviously, it's frustrating. I think a lot of teams, you got massive guys along defensive lines across the National Football League, got a game plan for it a little bit better and got to find out how you can slow it down. Now, I don't think it's really going to affect Cincinnati offensively, right? Bengals don't do this, right? You're not going to see Joe Burrow get under center and everybody come in. Not to say they won't QB sneak with Joe Burrow, but they're not going to really try that tush-push. They have other things that they go to in short yardage. Bengals, by the way, weren't very good in short yardage last year, so maybe it's something you think about, but I don't think with, obviously Hurts, everybody says, he squats millions of pounds and he can deadlift all this weight. Joe Burrow, strong guy, but isn't able to do that, so I don't think it would necessarily have the same effect for the Cincinnati Bengals. But defensively, if you're in a situation, in the Super Bowl against the Philadelphia Eagles, you got to figure it out because you got to be better in short yardage situations if you're the Bengals defense. If you remember last year when opponents were in 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, it was like, well, give them the first down and we'll try again after that, right? But obviously your defense was absolutely horrible last season. So it's definitely going to impact Cincinnati from a defensive perspective. I think you'll start to see, Baltimore perhaps do it a little bit more, right? Teams around the league are going to continue to try it. I know Buffalo tries it a lot. They don't have nearly the same amount of success as Philadelphia, but you're going to have to game plan for it on defense, and that certainly has an effect on the Bengals. What is your one-word reaction to the tush-push living on? Let me know. Give me that one word in the comment section of today's show. All right, up next, we're going to talk some playoff seeding discussion. So the Detroit Lions basically had an idea where they wanted the playoffs to be seeded in a certain way where you don't have to win your division to get a top 4 seed, and it would solely be based on record. Now, I definitely get that from a certain perspective, right? Because you have some of these teams, right? If you think about like the NFC South as a division, right? The division hasn't been very good. Brady's last year, they didn't win many games, right? But they were able to win the division and get a home playoff game. And there's other teams in other divisions that win a lot more games, but they weren't able to win their division, so they don't get the home playoff game. I get the frustration there from Detroit. But here's what Mike Garafolo of NFL Network had to say. Playoff seeding remains as is. The top 4 seeds in each conference are all division winners. And look, I think that is the way to do it. All right, I think that is the correct way. There's no way to switch off that. I'll have more on my thoughts here in a second, but do want to get to Mike Tomlin's thoughts. Mike T, head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is what he had to say in regards to that playoff format. He said, I'm a division purist, to be quite honest with you. I love the rivalries that are division play. I love the structure of our scheduling that highlights it. I just categorize myself as division purist. I think the division winner should get a home playoff game. I totally agree with Mike T here, right? You know, I've been watching this league. I'm 24 years old. Been watching it my whole life, right? The division rivalries are incredible, right? As I mentioned, I get what the Lions are trying to do, right? When you win a ton of games and, you know, a team in your division wins one more game or has a tiebreaker over you and they get the home playoff game, it's frustrating. But that's just kind of the way it is. I want the rivalries to matter a lot here, right? You think about some of these incredible rivalries that you have throughout the NFL. Like winning the AFC North, that deserves a home playoff game to me, right? If you're able to go through Pittsburgh, Cleveland, who stinks, but, you know, got a good defense, right? Still AFC North football, but Pittsburgh, Baltimore, you're able to go through them 4 times and get wins on the board. If you win that division, that to me is an incredible accomplishment. I feel that way about other divisions in the National Football League as well, right? If you can knock off the Kansas City Chiefs in the West, we'll see if anyone else can do that. I think that's, worth getting a home playoff game for. Right, when you're talking about, the NFC East, right? Philly, Dallas, Washington. Washington looks like it's going to be, a problem here for years to come. That should mean something, and you should be able to get a home playoff game because of that. Again, these incredible games, these incredible rivalries, Bengals Steelers, Bengals Ravens, that should mean the most. Those division games should mean so much. The reason why it feels like they mean so much because it can directly dictate if you're playing at home come playoff time or not. So I think it would have been silly for the NFL to pivot off of this. Again, I don't have a problem with Detroit bringing it up, but I'm kind of like Mike T said. I'm a purist when it comes to this. I don't think there's any reason to switch it. I think you should preserve the rivalries. I think the NFL is doing a great job of making sure that stays the case. Don't miss out on any Cincinnati Bengals news. We will have you covered here at the channel. Hit that sub button for me right now. Trying to get to 20,000 subscribers here on the channel. youtube.com/BengalsTV. Now, here's what Ian Rappaport had to say. Going to talk about this kind of to close out today's show in regards to the Olympics and NFL players participating when it comes to flag football in the Olympics. Rappaport tweeting out, NFL owners have now officially approved a resolution to allow their players to participate in flag football in the 2028 Summer Olympics, 32-0. No surprise, but significant. The NFL's version of the Dream Team is coming. Now, as this pertains to the Cincinnati Bengals, obviously Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow are your top options here, right? You got 10 players, 5 on offense, 5 on defense. Also means 1 quarterback, right? So we will see what kind of the process looks like when it comes to figuring out which guys can be on the football team, because I would imagine there's going to be a ton of guys that want to play. You want to go, play flag football in front of the whole world, have a chance to win a gold medal for your country, and you're already playing tackle football for a living? Like, yeah, sign me up. Sounds incredible. I definitely would want to be a part of that myself. Now, Burrow has expressed interest in playing. So have other quarterbacks, though. Patrick Mahomes certainly has expressed interest in playing as well. And there is only one quarterback, as I mentioned, out there on the football field. And it's going to be very interesting to see how that quarterback gets chosen. But I am super excited about this. I think it's going to be awesome. To be able to see them going out there and competing for their country. Think how awesome it was. Even if you're not a basketball fan, I'm definitely a basketball fan. But seeing what Steph Curry was able to do, LeBron James, this past Olympics, winning that gold medal. That was incredible. And if you love, sports and you love your country, that should get you pretty fired up. And now we get to see it with the most popular game in our country, which is American football. Obviously, it's a little bit different because no tackling, but I think the core principles and values of the game is something that we're still going to be able to see here in the Olympics. And I think everybody should be pretty fired up about this. I know I certainly am. All right, who is your Team USA dream team here? You got 10 guys to choose from. You got, quarterback, and then it's a lot of speed guys as well. I'm not going to sit here and act like I know exactly how the flag football game works, but from what I've heard, you don't necessarily want big guys out there. You want a lot of fast athletes on the football field that can really move around and make explosive plays. So we're going to be breaking down my 10 guys here in a second, but let me know. I know it's asking you a lot to get 10 names in the comment section of today's show, but have some fun. Get your dream team, USA dream team, in the comment section right now. All right, here's mine. Now, before you go off on me for my quarterback selection, you have to understand that you can't have multiple guys from the same team. So I would love to have Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, but in this situation, I'm forced to pick between Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. And there's a narrative out there that, Joe Burrow might not be great at flag football. I think that's absolutely ridiculous, right? He's the best quarterback in the planet. I think he would be just fine at playing quarterback, even if it is flag football. But regardless, I'm going with Josh Allen here at that quarterback spot. Massive arm. Obviously has that escapability there as well. I do think if I'm being forced to pick Jamar Chase or Joe Burrow, I'm going to go with Jamar Chase. I can't imagine anybody. Look, you got the Olympics, those Olympians, best athletes in the world. But I can't imagine some guy, from some European country trying to line up against Jamar Chase. I mean, you're cooked at that point. Similar with Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson really has kind of been the face of this for the NFL. I definitely think he will be a part of it. Those are my two receivers there, the LSU boys. I got Brock Bowers. He's going to be that center for you that can still go out there and run routes. I got Jahmyr Gibbs. You don't really need a running back, but I think Gibbs has all kinds of speed. I think he would be electric out there. Travis Hunter. I think he's kind of a no-brainer. He's got that versatility to play both sides of the football. Incredible speed, incredible athleticism as well. Got several more Bama guys here with Brian Branch and Patrick Surtain II. I think Surtain is really the best corner in the league at this point, so I think him on there is a no-brainer. Brian Branch is awesome, too, as well. And the last two guys, Trent McDuffie obviously plays for the Chiefs, but I'm a big fan of Trent McDuffie and his game. Really think he could fit in well out there as a flag football player. This last one's a wild card. I've always had a ton of respect for Denzel Ward, but he is like 28 years old, so obviously when 2028 comes, he's going to be a little bit up there in age, but I do think he's a guy that could fly around and make some plays defensively as well. Remember to get yours in the comments section. That's mine. I can change my mind at some point, right? But that's my first gut dream team, 10 guy roster there for Team USA. But if you made it to the end of today's show, we appreciate you. Show your appreciation for us by liking today's video for me right now. Who do you want starting at those guard spots for the Cincinnati Bengals? Let me know in the comments section of today's show. I'm going to say right now, my final answer for now, for May 21st, I'm going to say Dylan Fairchild and Cordell Volson. I'm going to say I'm banking on Scott Peters getting the most out of him and some significant improvement from Volson. He beats out Cody Ford. He beats out Lucas Patrick as well. That's what I'm going with, but I do reserve the right to change my mind. Make sure you guys hit that sub button if you haven't done so already. Once again, that's youtube.com/BengalsTV. Appreciate all of you guys for hanging out with us here on a Wednesday for today's live show. We will have more videos and more live shows for you guys in the future, and, of course, watch parties when the season gets underway here in a couple of months. So don't miss out. Hit that sub button for me right now.